Friends, in today's video, we're going to share a truly unbelievable story about a 70-year-old wealthy woman who entered into a relationship with a much younger man. And what happened after their marriage will stay with you forever. Why did the young man agree to marry her? And what happened next that no one could have ever imagined? The deeper this story goes, the more shocking it becomes. So make sure to watch the video until the very end. If you enjoy the story, please give it a like. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss our next jaw-dropping videos. Now, let's begin. In the bustling heart of Dearborn, Michigan, lived a young Muslim man named Zayn Malik, aged just 22, but already bearing the weight of a man twice his age. His life was a series of sacrifices. His mother, Khadija, was terminally ill with late-stage cancer, and his younger sister, Alia, only 17, was still in high school, with dreams of becoming a doctor. Their father had died 3 years earlier in a workplace accident, and since then, Zayn had become the sole provider, working late nights at a halal grocery store, driving Uber during the day, and juggling online community college courses in between. Zayn was slowly crumbling under the burden. His face was pale, eyes sunken from exhaustion, and his hands trembled each time he counted the last few dollars in his pocket. Debt collectors called day and night. His mother's medication was expensive. Alia's school fees were overdue. The world had become a prison of responsibilities. One cloudy afternoon, Zayn entered a small Pakistani-owned tea shop known for its $1 chai. As he fumbled through his pocket, counting coins to pay for his cup, he felt a gaze settle on him. Looking up, he saw a woman in a luxurious black abaya and a glimmering diamond hijab pen. Her posture was regal, but her eyes were searching, studying him like she knew his soul. "Are you Zayn Malik?" she asked, her voice low and composed. He blinked, confused. "Yes, I am." She nodded slowly. "I know what you're going through." Zayn's heart skipped. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "My name is Sophia Al-Rahman. I'm a businesswoman. I lost my husband long ago. I've seen the world, and I see the sadness in your eyes, the struggle, the pressure, the silence. You're worried about your mother, your sister, and your life. But what if I told you I can change everything for you?" Zayn's brow furrowed. "I'm not following." She smiled gently. "Marry me." He laughed awkwardly, thinking it a joke. Sophia looked at least 70, her skin aged but glowing with health. Her presence was powerful, almost magnetic. "I'm not joking," she continued. "You marry me and I will pay all your debts. I'll get the best treatment for your mother. I'll sponsor your sister's education all the way to medical school. You will be free. No more night shifts, no more stress. All I ask in return is that you agreed to my conditions." Zayn stared at her, stunned. "This is insane. Why would you do that? Why me?" Sophia looked into his eyes. "Because once, a long time ago, I lost everything. And now I have everything except someone to share it with. Think about it. You don't need to love me. I won't touch your freedom. You'll have your own room, your own life. But marry me, and everything changes." He left the shop in a haze, her words echoing in his mind. Days passed. The pain of watching his mother suffer without medicine, the shame of telling his sister that she might have to drop out, it all became too heavy. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline of Dearborn, Zayn stood outside Sophia's mansion. He had made his mind. "I accept," he said. Within a week, the paperwork was done. A quiet nikah took place with a few witnesses from the community. Zayn was now legally married to Sophia Al-Rahman, the wealthiest woman in the region. Her mansion looked like something out of a royal fairy tale. Chandeliers, Persian rugs, golden railings. Yet amidst all the wealth, Zayn felt a strange emptiness, a stillness too sharp to ignore. Servants moved like ghosts. Everyone bowed to Sophia, including her longtime aides and distant relatives. Yet behind all the glitter, something was off. The second floor of the mansion had a massive locked door, guarded around the clock. No one would tell Zayn what was inside. He was treated well, given his own wing, new clothes, access to anything he wanted. But there was an invisible wall between him and Sophia. She dined with him each night, asked how he was, but never pushed him. She smiled warmly, never complained. She was graceful, kind, and distant. But what disturbed Zayn more than anything was the locked door. It whispered to him every time he passed by. One night, he paused before it, placing his hand on the cold brass handle. A guard immediately appeared. "Sir, this area is restricted." "Why?" Zayn asked, but no answer came. And then, late one night, as the call to Fajr echoed faintly from a nearby mosque, Zayn heard something behind the door. Voices. A conversation. A woman's voice. Sophia's. He leaned closer, heart racing. That's when the questions began to haunt him. Who really is Sophia al-Rahman? What's behind that door? And why him? In that moment, Zayn realized marrying Sophia might have saved his family, but it may have also opened a door to something he was never meant to discover. The night after Zayn heard the muffled voices beyond the forbidden door, sleep eluded him. He lay in his luxurious bed, surrounded by gold-trimmed walls and silken curtains, but the comfort of the mansion couldn't quiet the storm now building inside him. His mother's health had begun improving dramatically. Sophia had flown in a top Muslim oncologist from Chicago. Alia's tuition was paid in full, and she had even received a new laptop and study desk. Everyone in Zayn's family was thanking Allah for this unexpected miracle. Yet Zayn himself was restless. Sophia remained the same, gentle, reserved, and composed. She would share dinner with him each night, speak kindly, ask about his family, and then retire early. Zayn noticed she never prayed with the rest of the household. She always prayed alone in that part of the house closest to the locked door. And each time he asked about the door, the servant simply said, "That is the private wing. No one enters without her permission." Zayn felt like a prince in a golden cage. He had everything, yet was being kept away from something essential: truth. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of amber and violet, Zayn sat in the courtyard flipping through an old Quran Sophia had gifted him. He was lost in his thoughts when Mira, a soft-spoken young woman of 19, brought him tea. "Is everything all right, sir?" she asked gently. He looked up. "Mira, tell me honestly, what's behind that locked door upstairs?" Her face instantly stiffened. She lowered her gaze. I'm sorry. I don't know." "You do," Zayn said quietly. "I can see it in your eyes." Mira hesitated, then whispered, "Please don't ask. I could lose everything." Zayn didn't push further, but that only fueled his obsession. That night, he approached Mira again, this time in the kitchen where no one could overhear. "Mira," he said, his tone earnest, "if Sophia permits, will you tell me when she's alone and available to talk?" Mira hesitated again, but eventually nodded. "If she says yes, I'll come to you." 2 nights later, as the house fell into midnight silence, Mira appeared at his door. "She's waiting in her chamber," she said softly. Zayn pulse quickened. He washed his face, dressed in a dark blue tobe, and made his way through the hallway lined with dim sconces where portraits of ancient family members looked down with hollow eyes. He reached Sophia's room and knocked. "Come in, Zayn," came her calm voice from within. He entered and paused. The room was unlike anything he'd seen. Roses in tall vases gave off a divine fragrance. Delicate fabrics draped over arched windows, and in the center, seated with elegance and radiating youth despite her age, was Sophia. Her eyes sparkled as she saw him. "I didn't think you'd come." "I had to," Zayn said, voice low. "There's too much I don't understand." She smiled. "Sit." He sat across from her, tense. "You're not here because of your mother or sister," she said gently. "You're here because of that door." Zayn's heart pounded. "Yes," he admitted, "it haunts me." Sophia stood slowly and walked to a nearby cabinet. She took out an old photograph and handed it to him. In the picture stood a man who looked very much like Zayn, only older, dressed in 80s-style clothes, standing next to a younger Sophia. "That's your father," she said. Zayn's breath caught. "What?" "His name was Samuel Malik. We met long before he married your mother." Zayn stared at her. "You knew him?" Sophia nodded, her voice almost trembling now. "He was the first man I ever loved. After my husband died, your father was kind to me, but I misunderstood his kindness. I believed he loved me too. When I proposed marriage, he laughed, told me it was ridiculous, that I was nothing more than a rich distraction." She turned her face away, voice tightening. "It shattered me. That rejection, the shame. I buried it until I saw you, Zayn. You look exactly like him." Zayn rose from his chair. "So this marriage, was it revenge?" "No," she said, turning back. "It began that way, but it didn't stay that way." He stared at her in disbelief. "I wanted you to suffer as I had, to feel trapped, controlled, used. But then you showed me kindness. You spoke gently. You never raised your voice. You respected me even when I didn't deserve it." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't expect to fall in love with you." Zayn stepped back, shaken. This is madness." Safia crossed the room slowly, placing her hand over her heart. "I know it sounds that way, but the heart is not logical, Zayn, and neither is pain." There was silence between them, long, heavy, sacred. Zayn looked away. "So what's behind that door?" Safia exhaled. "The truth. And you're ready now." She reached into a drawer and handed him a brass key. "Tomorrow night, after everyone sleeps, come alone. Bring no questions, no accusations, only your heart." That night, Zayn returned to his room but couldn't sleep. The revelation about his father left him reeling. Everything about Safia, her calm, her mansion, her offer, it had all been a carefully veiled act. And yet, something in her eyes felt genuine, painfully genuine. He stared at the key in his hand. A key not just to a door, but perhaps to a truth that could burn or heal. The key in Zayn's hand felt heavier than metal. It pulsed with meaning, with pain, with promise. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep and the mansion fell into its usual eerie silence, Zayn stood outside the forbidden door on the second floor. Alone, he looked around. The hallway was dimly lit. The distant ticking of an old wall clock echoed like a heartbeat. With a slow breath, he inserted the key. Click. The heavy brass lock released with a finality that sent a chill through his spine. He pushed open the thick door. It creaked like a groaning soul. Inside was a room cloaked in age and memory. The lighting was soft and golden. Dust floated through the air like spirits caught in limbo. On the far side stood a tall wooden cabinet, ornate, carved, ancient. A single armchair sat before it, draped in a faded prayer shawl. Zayn stepped inside slowly. Everything in the room smelled like rosewater and old paper. His eyes were drawn to a table in the center, atop which sat a thick leather-bound folder. He opened it. Inside were dozens of photographs. Most were of Safia in her younger days, smiling, traveling, attending galas. But among them were several photographs of his father, Samuel Malik. Some showed them together. In one, they were sitting on a picnic blanket in a park. In another, Samuel was holding Safia's hand. Zayn's jaw clenched. Underneath the photographs were letters, handwritten, folded, dated over 30 years ago. He picked up one and read, "Dear Samuel, I waited for you at the train station again. Why didn't you come? You said you loved me. Was it all a lie? I gave up everything for you. I can't bear this silence." Zayn dropped the letter. His breath was shallow.
Suddenly, a voice came from behind. I used to write to him every week. He spun around. Safia stood at the threshold, wearing a long, flowing robe. Her expression was calm, her voice fragile. He never wrote back, she continued. Not once. Zayn's heart beat louder than his words. Why did you keep this room locked? Because it was the part of me that never healed. And I didn't want anyone to see it. He stared at her. Why marry me then? Why trap me in this? She stepped closer, her eyes glistening. At first, it was punishment. I wanted his son to know what it meant to be powerless, to have no choice. But then you showed me kindness. You spoke gently. You never raised your voice. You respected me even when I didn't deserve it. She paused, then added, and you made me love again. Zayn backed away, his emotions warring within him. This isn't love, Safia. This is manipulation, guilt, obsession. No, she said softly. It became love when I realized I didn't want to control you. I just wanted you to see me. Zayn turned towards the cabinet again. Among the documents inside, something caught his eye. A legal will, dated only a month ago. It stated that upon her death, the entire estate would belong to Zayn Malik. He stared at the paper, then looked at her. You're giving me everything? Yes, she nodded. Not because I have to, but because I trust you, and because you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. Tears welled in Zayn's eyes. He didn't know if it was sorrow, guilt, anger, or all of it combined. I don't know what to do with all this, he whispered. Safia gave a faint smile. Just stay for tonight. That's all I ask. Zayn didn't respond. He simply stood there, young, conflicted, and heavy with inherited pain. That night they spoke for hours, not as wife and husband, not as victim and offender, but as two human beings scarred, searching, surrendering. By dawn, a strange peace had settled over them. But fate had one more turn. Weeks later, Safia fell ill. The doctors called it heart failure. They said, age. She's lived a full life. Zayn sat by her bedside, reading Quran, watching over her like a son more than a husband. And in her final breath, she whispered, Thank you for making me feel young again, even if just for a while. She passed away with a smile. At her janazah, Zayn stood quietly as others praised her charity, her business empire, her resilience. No one knew the full story, but Zayn did. And when it was over, he whispered into the wind, I forgive you, Safia. Forgive me too. But this wasn't the end, because from the shadows of the mansion, someone else had been watching. Mira, the 19-year-old who had served Safia loyally, who had quietly cared for Zayn's needs during his most confusing days, now emerged into the light. Her eyes followed him with warmth. Not desire, not manipulation, but something gentler, devotion. And slowly, like a flower blooming at the edge of winter, a new story began to unfold. Months passed. The mansion that once echoed with the quiet footsteps of Safia al-Rahman now pulsed with a new kind of life. Gone were the whispers of old regrets, the haunting silence behind locked doors, and the weight of secrets pressed into velvet walls. In their place bloomed sunlight, gentle music, and laughter that felt like spring after a brutal winter. Zayn had changed, but not into the man people expected him to become. Yes, he had inherited Safia's fortune. Yes, he was now the legal owner of the sprawling estate, multiple properties, and half a dozen businesses. But he didn't spend his days flaunting wealth. He used it as a shield, to protect his mother, to build Alia a future, and to transform the mansion into something new, a home, not a shrine to pain. And in this new chapter, Mira slowly stepped into the center. She had always been there, present but silent, gentle but invisible. A 19-year-old orphan raised by the household, Mira had been Safia's closest confidant. Yet it was only after Safia's death that Zayn truly saw her. It began subtly. She would bring him tea in the morning and ask if he slept well. She remembered how he liked his books organized by topic. She reminded him to eat when he forgot. She listened without judgment and never crossed a line. One afternoon, Zayn found her in the old rose garden, tending to a dying jasmine vine. "You really care about this place, don't you?" he asked. Mira looked up smiling. "It was the only home I ever knew." Zayn paused. "You never seemed afraid of Safia, even when everyone else bowed around her." "She gave me shelter," Mira replied softly, "but it was you who gave this place peace." Those words stayed with him. He started to look for Mira, talk with her, ask her about her dreams. She wanted to become a teacher, she said, but her life had been paused in servitude. Zayn made a quiet decision. He would help her become whoever she wanted to be. No expectations, no strings. But as weeks turned into months, and as spring returned to Michigan, something deeper took root. One night after Tarawih prayer at the local masjid, Zayn and Mira walked together under the moonlight. He said, "I've been thinking. You've been with me through everything. You never asked for anything."
Mira looked down bashfully. "I never wanted anything except to see you happy." He stopped walking. "Then would it make you happy if I ask you to be part of my life?" Her eyes widened. "You mean—" Zayn nodded slowly. "Not out of pity, not to replace anyone, but because when I look at you, I feel calm. I feel home." Tears welled up in Mira's eyes. "Yes," she whispered. They were married in a modest nikah ceremony at the mosque. No fanfare, no gold-plated invitations, just a gathering of friends, family, and a quiet dua offered for the soul of Safia al-Rahman. Zayn had once believed he was cursed, trapped in a loveless deal, used as a pawn in an old woman's revenge. But what he hadn't realized was this: sometimes Allah brings us through the strangest roads just to lead us to where we're meant to be. He was now a husband, a caretaker, and soon a father. Yes, Mira was pregnant. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was real. The mansion that once held grief now echoed with lullabies and nursery rhymes. His mother sat peacefully in the garden every evening. Aliyah, now in her 3rd year of medical school, returned home every weekend to study and laugh with their growing family. And in the East Wing, where Safia had once guarded her pain, Zayn had built something new. A library named the Al-Rahman Room of Forgiveness. It housed all of Safia's old books, her journals, her letters, including the ones she never sent. One quote was carved on the stone above the entrance. "Love does not always arrive the way we expect, but when it does, it makes everything before it worth surviving." And so ends the story of a young man who married a 70-year-old woman, of a deal that became destiny, and of a revenge that was slowly, painfully, and beautifully transformed into love, forgiveness, and legacy. Thank you for listening. If this story moved your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, stay kind, stay curious, and stay grateful.